Hello everyone. Today we'll be looking into native Korean numerals as opposed to last week when we saw Sino-Korean numerals. So this is in page number 56 of the material given in the description box. So to our lesson. So if you see here, we have the numbers given here. That is 1. 1 is 하나, 2, 둘, 3, 셋, 4, 넷, 5, 다섯, 6, 여섯, 7, 일곱, 8, 여덟, 9, 아홉, 10, 열. So, like in Sino-Korean, you need to learn till 1 to 10, and then you have the variations of that so that you can form the tens and hundreds, thousands, and all that from the basic numbers. In native Korean, the only difference is that you also need to learn 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. Except for that, the mechanism of how the number system works, everything is same. So since we saw till 10, I'll give you an example of how the teen numbers work. So 11 is you have 10, then you add hana. That is 1. We already saw that 1 was hana and 2 was dul. So the same way you would just write 10 first and then add 1. The same way 10 and 2, 10 and 3. So it would be your hana, your dul, your set, your net, your dasot, your yosot. It would go like that. Then your irgob, your yodar, your aob, like that. As for 20, it is sumur. So from here is where you need to by heart the numbers. That is, you need to by heart the 20, 30s at 0 coming numbers. So 20 is sumur. Then the same way as you saw in 11, 12, 13, the T numbers, the same way you're just adding 1 or 2 or whatever number you want there to that sumur. So sumur hana, sumur dur, sumur set, it would just go like that. The next would be 30. 30 is 서른. 40, 마흔. 50, 쉰. 60, 예순. 70, 일흔. 80, 여든. 90, 아흔. So if you see here, we already know that 60 or 6 is yosot. So you can kind of link that to yesun because, it's not exactly the same, but then you have similarities here and there to recognize and remember it because that's how I learned. I found native Korean numbers far more difficult than Sino-Korean numbers, honestly. And I had the most difficult time with this 20s, 30s, and all that. So as for 70, you already know that 7 is 일곱. So if you see here, you have the first syllable of 7 retained in there, and you're just adding a hun there, 일흔. The same way for 80, you already know that 8 is 여든. 여덟. So you're taking the first syllable of 여덟 and then converting that dor into din here. Just hun, din, hun. Just remember that you have got hun, din, hun at the last 3 numbers, that is 60, 70, and 80. As for 90, 9 we already know that it's aho. So from that you have the first syllable from ahub, and then that hob you're converting it into hun. So you have ahun. So it can be a trick for you to remember, or for some it might confuse you, and I'm sorry if it confuses you, but I hope you put your attention to this and learn this while being very careful, because this is a very, very important part of the language. Like, if you go into any language, you know that numbers form a very important part of that. And both Sino-Korean and Native Korean number systems are very important in Korean language system. Once you're done with 90, then you have the 10,000, 10,000, and all those zero numbers being the same as the Sino-Korean numbers. That is pek, ton, man, then tonman, all that. It's like the same. So, but then if you have a number like as it is given here, 189, it would literally be, you would do the 100 first, that is beg. The same system we saw in Sino-Korean. The mechanism is actually the same. So you have beg first and then 80. So what is 80? Yodun. So beg yodun, then you have 9 at the last. So it would be beg yodun ahub. Literally. So you just have, don't think that from 100 onwards all the numbers are same as Sino-Korean. No, it's just the zero coming numbers, that is hundreds, thousands, as I told you earlier. So be careful about that. Don't get things mixed up. So this is for Native Korean numbers. Now let's see how Sino-Korean numbers and Native Korean numbers mingle with each other and form time and date and all that. So this is in page number 55 of the material. So yes, we are going a page back here. So as for dates, so date is called 날짜 in Korean. 날, you just write 날 and then 자 with 상지읒. So 날짜. In English, we would have the date first, and then the month, and then the year. But then in Korean, what happens is that the order is completely reversed. So you have the, year first, month second, and then the date at the last. So, and you have suffixes for all of this to indicate what is what. So for year, the suffix is 년. For month, the suffix is 월. And for day, the suffix is 일. So one important thing you need to remember here is that the numbers vary slightly when you add these suffixes. Not all of them, just some of them for the sake of easier pronunciation. I'll be going into all that, and we'll be going into months separately in the next class. So I'm not gonna go into months in detail in this class. So first, let's just see how dates are done. So here, as I told, starting with the year, it would be 2010년. You already know how to say the numbers. So the year is pronounced in Sino-Korean, the month in Sino-Korean, and the date in Sino-Korean. So date is completely in Sino-Korean. It's in when you're saying the time, where there is a mix of Sino and Native Korean. So 2010년 1월 28일. 2010년 1월 28일. That's how you would say this date. The same way for the next one, it would be 2011년 10월 17일. See how I pronounced October here as 10월 rather than 10월, Because if you think of it, it's hard to pronounce shibor when you're talking fast. But then if you're saying sure, it just kind of flows out of your mouth. The same way, when it comes to the 6th month of the year, you would say Yugor if it was taken like that, but it's not. Again, Yugor is hard to say when you're speaking fast. So for the sake of comfort, Yugor is written and pronounced as Yuor. I hope you get me. It is Yuor and Shiwor, not Yugor and Shibor. That's wrong. Yuor and Shiwor. So you wouldn't write the numbers like this. I mean, when you're writing the dates somewhere, you wouldn't bother to write this whole thing like this because it is ridiculously long, of course. So you would just opt to writing numbers like this. You would just write 2010 and then the nyon, then a space, and then 1, the word, then once again a space, then 28, then air. That's how it would go, of course. So I hope you get it. Except for Yuor and Shiwor, others all are same as the numbers that you already know. So now we'll be getting into minutes. I mean, when I say minutes here, I mean the time. So when we're talking about time, first of all, time is called Shigan. You need to know that first. Now, as for getting into the time, we have no orders reversing here except for the AM and PM thing. You just have the AM and PM thing at the first, and then the time as a usual order, how you would say the hour first and then the minute second. That's exactly how it works. So for the hour, you would say she. As we saw earlier, we have a suffix here too, and for hour that is she, and for minute it's bun. And AM is ojan, PM is ohu. So we'll look into the examples given here. The first one is 9:38 AM, so you would say the AM first, so it would be ojan, aobshi, samshi parbun. So if you see here, the aobshi, the R spot is said in native Korean, while the minute spot is said in Sino-Korean. The second one with PM, so you have the PM coming first, ohu, yosashi, shibkubun. But then there's an exception to this, that is when you have 30. That is, 30 minutes is a half of an hour. So you would, instead of saying samshipun, saying samshipun is not exactly wrong or anything, and it is pretty common to say. But then, rather than samshipun, you would opt for something to just simply say half and just stop your karat there. So, and that is not just used for time. Anything when you're planning to say half, like half a bread loaf, or like half the food you want to eat, or something, anything half. For anything half, you would just use the term I'm gonna tell you right now. That is, if it is 5:30 AM, you would say ojan 5시 반. So pan is what you use for half. I hope you get that. The next one is prices. So prices is 가격 in Korean. So if you're going to market and asking the price of something to someone or the shopkeeper there, you would ask them, 이거 얼마예요? 이거 얼마예요? 이거, 저거, 그거, you have already learned that. So 이거 means this, and 얼마 means how much. So 이거 얼마예요? That's what you're asking. How much is this? Or if suppose you're talking about all the properties and all the benefits and everything about the product, and then finally you're asking what about the price? you know everything else, you talked about everything else, you questioned them about everything else, and then in between that conversation or at the end of the conversation, you're asking them, what about the price? Instead of how much is that? So in that case, you would ask 가격은요? 가격 and one 은요. If it is informal, you wouldn't use banmar in a shop with a random stranger, even if you know that shopkeeper for a long time. But just in case you're using informal speech, it would just be 가격은. If and of course, as usual, if you're using 존댓말, it would be 가격은요, or 얼마예요, or 이거 얼마예요. Saying 얼마예요 or 이거 얼마예요, both are correct. There's nothing compelling you that you need to add a this there for that to work. So as to the prices, the currency is called won, and this is the symbol. Like dollars, you have S and one line, vertical line going through it. The same way won also has a symbol, and that is a W with two vertical lines. Two horizontal lines. And it is written, it is written like this, and it is pronounced as won. So we have some example prices given here. That is 12,800원. 12,800원. So, like in dollars or like in Indian rupees, in same as most other currencies, if you're writing the symbol, you would have the dollar sign first. But then if you're reading that price out, or if you're telling someone the price, you would say $22 or $20 or $12, whatever it is. You wouldn't say $20 or $22. That wouldn't be a normal reply. The same way, you will write the symbol first and then pronounce the won. So it would be 12,800원. The second one would be 39,130원. 39,130원. That's how it should work. So I'm not gonna go into more of the details of how numbers are used in this class, because this in itself might be quite confusing for you guys. And the prices here, all the numbers are pronounced in Sino-Korean when you're talking about prices, so you don't need to be too much concerned about that. Just practice the whole Sino-Korean and native Korean and how the numbers are used, where it is used, and the suffixes related to it. It takes some time, and I know that I myself took some time to get through all of this. So if you have any doubts, feel free to put it in the comments. I'll be replying to all of them, and you can try to make your own numbers. Of course, there's limitless options you have, and you can try to use them in sentences too and put them in the comment box as usual. I can check on them. So we'll see later in the next class with a new topic. Thank you.